Welcome back to DIY Reid. If this is your first time, please consider subscribing. So the other day I noticed that my garbage disposal started leaking. The trash bags below were all wet and I couldn't figure out why. So I ran some water tests and I noticed it was leaking at the very bottom. So I went onto YouTube to find out what was going on. And apparently it is a common thing for garbage disposals that are dying to leak at the bottom. Since I didn't know what to get, I went to Amazon and got a Waste King, which was highly rated on Amazon. They have a 3rd horsepower, which I got, as well as a 1/2 horsepower and 3/4, and even a 1 horsepower. They were reasonably priced. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is unplug your old garbage disposal. You don't want to shock yourself. I'm going to go ahead and put a bucket underneath this P-trap because I'm going to remove this pipe that connects to the drain to my garbage disposal. I'm going to go ahead and also put a bucket underneath the garbage disposal just in case it leaks anymore. So this nut was on pretty tight, so I'm going to use some pliers to gently loosen it up and then loosen up the nut all the way. Take note, you really want to loosen it up as far as you possibly can. That way you can kind of pry this out of the connector. This has not been replaced since I'm sure the house was built 11 years ago. And then up here, connected to the disposal, there are 2 screws, flathead screws, connected to a clamp that actually keeps it into the garbage disposal. You'll want to remove those as well. And they shouldn't be too tight in there at all. They actually weren't tight on mine. So remove both of them. And then you'll take the clamp and kind of pry it off of the garbage disposal. And there you go. I was able to remove the pipe free. Yeah, it gets kind of yucky in there because all your food's ground out and pushed through the drain. So to remove this disposal, you'll need to put a screwdriver in here and then lefty-loosey to loosen it up. So go ahead and set the camera down to do this. But hold the disposal at the bottom and then just gently loosen it with the screwdriver and it'll pop off. So now you have the disposal free and all you have left is the mount and the drain. So as you can see here, what's left are 3 screws. They're Phillips head, flathead screws. And then you should need to remove those or loosen them up so that way you can actually get the old drain loose. So they kind of use a pancake method here for the drain. And then with these 3 screws here, you'll loosen them all the way up. And once you do that, it'll allow you to get the kind of the clamp at the bottom, so that way it's loose, and then you can pull that out, and that way you can pull the very top of the drain out. So there's kind of a little cotter pin or a circle pin here that you'll need to remove, so that way you can get that out of the way and get the drain out. Once I got that removed, I went ahead and tried to figure out how to get this thing out. I thought you had to unscrew this, but it's not actually threaded, so I was kind of dumbfounded until I used a flathead screwdriver and it came out really easy after that. Almost too easy. It's almost one of those things you're like, really, is it that easy? So once I got that loose, so I'm able to remove that, and then there's also a little gasket here that comes out. And then the drain, the old drain, is removed easily here. And all that crumbling stuff is plumber's putty. We're not going to use plumber's putty on the new one because it uses a rubber gasket. So now it's free. So now you got a little bit of plumber's putty left over on the sink area. So you really want to get that removed on the sink area before you put the new one in. Luckily, it was pretty easy for me to remove. I just used a wet paper towel and some elbow grease. Did use my fingernail on a few little things, but at the end of the day, it was actually really easy for me to remove all of it. You really want to concentrate on getting this as clean as you possibly can, because now that we have the new drain in, it has a rubber gasket instead of plumber's putty. And then at the bottom here, it's a different setup. It had that paper gasket, and then you can see here the drain catcher, and then it had a little plastic nut that I screwed on as tight as I can, so that way it keeps the drain in place. So the Waste King is a little bit different than the other style. They actually don't use the C-clip to hold the disposal on, you use this rubber gasket. It's a round rubber gasket that fits into a groove on the drain. I was kind of surprised that that actually holds the actual disposal, and as a matter of fact I actually looked up a YouTube video because I did not believe it. But it kind of goes up in here and a little groove, and you don't want to push it up too high because you actually can shove it up as far as past the groove. So you just want to get it up there until it clicks. If you push it up too high, you're not going to get the disposal on in its own groove on the metal. So on the disposal, it has these two little notches, one on each side, and they actually line up with the notches in the mounting bracket here. And you'll put it up in the notch and rotate it about 1/4 inch until it fits firmly in there. It's easier if you hold the bracket above the brass. And there we go. It is ready to go and hook up to the actual drain. So now that you got the drain in place, you need to take this bracket and put the screws in it so that way it's seated against the disposal nicely. Don't over tighten these screws because you are tightening into plastic and you will strip them pretty easily. You just need to get it so that it's tightening the gasket onto the actual disposal. What's really nice is, I didn't know this, but it makes sense, but the disposal was a pretty standard height as far as the drain goes, so I didn't have to modify the drain position for the disposal on the new one. So go ahead and tighten the screws in on both sides. So you'll tighten this nut up now, and I've tightened it up as tight as you can by hand, but if you use a wrench or a pair of pliers, don't over tighten it because you can crack it. Now we're pretty much done, so don't forget to plug in your new garbage disposal. But I just want to double check everything, make sure everything is tight and ready to go. Now's the fun part. We will turn the water on and make sure there's no leaks. Verify that there is no leaks at all. Let the water run for a little bit. Make sure it drains properly. Kind of check in areas where you connected it, where the meets the sink. Make sure that it's not leaking around where you put the gaskets in and also where you connected the pipe. I just want to make sure it's not leaking anywhere else there. And we're good to go here. And then actually test the garbage disposal out. Turn it on. Make sure it works. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And thanks for watching. See you next time.